Today's show is especially important if you are building a business of your own. Making sure that you have a solid legal foundation and that your brand is protected will actually give you peace of mind and more confidence to go out there and make the difference that you know you are meant to make. My guest today is Yasmine Salem Hamdan, and you can find her on Instagram as the Startup Lawyer Lady if you're not already following her. She is a Dallas-based brand protection attorney who serves online business owners and entrepreneurs. What I love about Yasmine's philosophy is that it's rooted in being proactive, not reactive, when it comes to developing a solid legal foundation for your business and essentially protecting your intellectual property and all the hard work that you've put in. Seriously, she has so much wisdom. We were only able to get through a fraction of it in this podcast episode. So we recorded an extended version of the episode for our Girl Gang membership community, which includes her advice on where you should invest first when it comes to the legal foundation of your business, especially if you're on a limited budget. So you can learn more about the Girl Gang membership and join the party at powerhousewomen.co/girlgang. But without further ado, I cannot wait for you to hear my conversation with the startup lawyer lady herself. So let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest because she is someone who I have had personal experience working with, and she's helped me to do exactly what we are going to be talking about today, which is navigate the confusing world of making sure that your business is legally protected and that all of your hard work and the investment of time and energy that you're putting into your business, your passion project, is not going to be in vain. So please help me welcome Yasmine Salem Hamdan. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I just had like a brain freeze. And I want to give you a proper introduction though, and share something that I don't even know if I shared with you when we first talked. But what I love about you is that on your personal brand and really your business and personal brand on Instagram, Startup Lawyer Lady, which right there is so clear exactly what it is that you do. We talk a lot in our community about brand clarity and making sure your message is so clear that people who need you, who are looking for your services, are able to find you. And that was actually exactly my experience coming across your brand and why I hired you, because it was so clear to me by your messaging and what you put out on social media that you were exactly what I was looking for at the time. So if you do not know, if you haven't had a chance to Insta-stalk her Instagram, Startup Lawyer Lady, Yasmine is a Dallas-based brand protection attorney, and she serves online businesses and entrepreneurs. And what I love is that you are also an entrepreneur yourself. You understand exactly what it's like to navigate these waters of building a business, building a brand, so you're able to see what it's like in our shoes, but also be on both sides. So thank you for being here today and sharing some of your wisdom with our community.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Lindsay. It's my pleasure.
So I want to dive in and talk a little bit about you as an individual, first of all, because you are an entrepreneur. You are creating your own unique mark on the world, which is really what this community is all about. So tell us a little bit of the backstory. Obviously, you are an attorney, so I want to know what inspired you to go into that field, and then why did you choose to take a little bit different path as an entrepreneur and create these services that you have for others in the same industry?
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. So I obviously went to law school, right? That's kind of a prerequisite to becoming an attorney. So when I was in law school, my intention was always to go into criminal defense work. That was always, I was very, and still am very passionate about criminal justice reform and the system and being a part of that. And so after I interned with a criminal defense attorney, my first year of law school, I was just like, this is not what I thought it was. At all. And I just didn't feel like it was the right fit for me. I didn't feel like it was my path. And so I was grateful for my experience there, but I went back to school that next semester. And I was like, what the hell am I going to do? Right. And so I figured, let me see, like try out a couple different classes and see what's going on. And I've always had an interest in business. I come from a family of business owners, entrepreneurs. So I was like, hey, let me see what's going on over here. Right. So I took a few classes in entrepreneurship in the law, intellectual property law, and I really enjoyed it. And I found it so intriguing. And I thought, okay, well, let me intern in, a law firm doing this type of work so I can see practically what it looks like, and interact more with business owners and hear about their issues and what they're actually experiencing. And so I did that for some time, for about a year. It was a great experience. And what I really walked away from that in mind, what I had in mind as I walked away from that experience was I knew that I wanted to work with business owners. I knew I wanted to work with creatives, especially, in this day and age. It's such an exciting time to be in the business space, right? There's so much potential, and there's just so much that we are able to do, and we're able to reach so many different people through our businesses. And so I realized, okay, I really want to work with these people. I want to help bridge the gap between the online business world and the legal world, because there is such an information gap, right? There's a lack of sharing and communication between the two spaces, but one really can't exist without the other. And so at that time I was like, okay, the firm I was working at, they didn't really deal much with online businesses and brands. We had a lot of clients that were like construction firms, like plumbing companies, and more like, I guess real world type service providers, like larger retailers. And so there wasn't a lot of one-on-one consultation or interaction between us as the attorneys, and at the time I was an intern, and the clients. And so I was thinking, okay, I kind of like the gist of what they've got going on over here, but I want to put my own spin on it. I want to be able to work with my clients one-on-one, and provide those personalized services to them and personalized attention to them. And then also I want to work with people that are doing business online and selling services and digital products and in the retail space and are doing it differently, and help them to avoid legal disputes from cropping up later on. Because as you know, Lindsay, when you create something, fabulous, people start coming out the woodwork, trying to duplicate it or replicate it. The more business relationships you enter into, the more potential there is for problems to, crop up. And so my goal is to help my clients be proactive and to avoid those legal issues from popping up later on down the line, and really as opposed to being reactive and doing that damage control. So it's a long answer to your question, I realize. I hope it's clear.
It's perfect because I think you nailed it. You saw this vision of a market that maybe wasn't being served or not being served in a different sense than maybe traditionally what we have known as far as legal services. And until meeting you and meeting we have some incredible women here in Phoenix doing similar work, I had never known about the possibility of hiring an attorney other than going to a big law firm and having maybe more of that almost, I want to say, cold relationship where I'm just a client who maybe this person doesn't quite understand what the challenges I face uniquely as an entrepreneur in the online space. And I think it's so beautiful that you felt that calling to bridge both your passions together, because it is so needed. And it was one of the reasons why when I came across your information, right away I knew not only could you really be an asset to me in my business, but so many of the women who are in our community are in the same space. So kudos to you. And I'm just so grateful that people like you exist.
I'm so glad that our paths crossed.
Indeed, indeed. So goodness, I have so many things that I want to dive into, but I want to just spend a little bit more time on you as the entrepreneur, because one of the things that we talk a lot about in our community is we keep it real, because I think it's very easy sometimes, especially when someone has a great social media presence or they've been successful in however they define success. It's very easy to think This woman does not struggle. She does not have fear. She does not have doubt. So, what are some of the current challenges that you find yourself facing at the stage of business that you're in?
Okay, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna keep it so real because this is a real struggle that I face in my business. Well, it's not my only struggle. Let me just say that. There is a multitude of struggles that I face within my business, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. Lately, one of my bigger struggles has been visibility. And putting myself out there to my audience even when I don't feel like it. Truthfully, I have not been out there as much as I know I could be and I should be, right? And I know that my audience wants me to be. But there are just so many days that I just don't feel like it. And that's not okay. I mean, it's okay to not feel like it, but we have to show up within our businesses, right? And we have to show up for our audiences. And I commend you for this wind down Wednesdays that you do, that you consistently, and that's how it should be, and that's the key, is to be consistent in how you show up and when you show up to your audience and to your people. And so that's a big struggle for me. I'm also a little over 7 months pregnant, and so yeah, I have not really been in the mood to be like on camera and like sharing and just being out there. And thankfully it's been a good pregnancy. Like I haven't really been, under the weather so much, but it's just like, it's just a lot, and that's just really been my big struggle. And I'm working to overcome that. And I have plans to, really up that in terms of, and when I say visibility, I specifically mean video. You know, it's different. It really is different. And when you're not used to that, and that's just not something that you, I guess, do on a consistent basis, it just makes it that much more of a, okay, well, I've got to sit down and start this process. And what am I going to talk about? And how am I going to look? And what are people going to think? And it's like, who cares what people are going to think? You have plenty to talk about. There's plenty that people ask you about, that your audience wants to hear about, and all the value that you have to share. And it's a lot easier said than done, obviously, because I'm not doing it, but I'm saying it. But that's where I am, in terms of that visibility and showing up for my people.
Oh, you are speaking so much truth into all of our lives right now, especially as a solo entrepreneur. When people are starting out, you're wearing all the hats. And one of the most important things that we can do is be visible, but then we're also doing all the work behind the scenes.
Yep.
So you are not alone at all by any means.
Yes.
But I do remember there was a video that was posted on your Instagram, and that was one of the first things that I stumbled across. So video can be such a powerful tool, and most of us do. I think we would all agree that we tend to work it up in our minds so much worse than it is in real life.
Yep.
But the struggle is real, and you are so not alone. So thank you for just being so open and sharing that. Okay, I have one final question. This is kind of just a fun one. I always love to hear what people would say. So fill in the blank. If you really knew me, you would know that.
Oh, if you really knew me, you would know that I'm cranky when I don't get enough sleep.
Amen to that, sister.
Yeah, I try to not show it to those that don't really know me, because I guess it's not their fault, and it really isn't anybody's fault. But yeah, I'm not a fun person when I don't get enough sleep.
I will never be team no sleep. Never. That is the best part about being an entrepreneur, is I can control the quantity of my sleep. I love it.
Yep, all the sleep. Please.
Okay, well, you seem well rested today. So let's dive in and talk a little bit about all of the layers that come with protecting a brand and the things that we need to know as entrepreneurs. So the first question I have is really just kind of in general, if you would break down the difference between a trademark and a copyright and a patent, because they can seem to cross over, but legally they're very different. So what are the distinct differences between them, and when would we need each of them?
Yes. So you hit on those three types of intellectual property. So intellectual property breaks up into trademarks, copyrights, and patents, generally speaking. So I focus with my clients, we work on trademarks, as you know, and trademark development, as well as trademark protection and strategy. And so when it comes to patents, patents are rights that are granted by the US government to the creator of an invention, or someone that had an invention created for them and the rights were transferred to them. But either way, it's a person that applies for the exclusivity with respect to the patented invention. And specifically, it grants them the rights to reproduce it, to sell it, to profit from it, to import it from outside of the country, and so on. Those last for a period of 20 years, and it can be a very long and expensive process. And as I'm sure you can imagine, it's very complex because sometimes it has to do with, chemical composition, or it might be plant-based, or it might be a design or a utility or something like that. And so there's so many applications coming into the USPTO or the US Patent and Trademark Office with regards to patents. So it's a very long process. Not to say trademark processes are any shorter, and you are also familiar with this. So that brings us to the trademarks. Trademarks are source identifiers. These are also intellectual property assets that we use as business owners to identify the source of our goods and services. And so an example of this that I always like to use is Nike. Nike has a great trademark portfolio. We're all very familiar with it. So Nike has the brand name, which obviously is Nike. When you see Nike, you automatically associate it with the company, who produced this product or this program or whatever it might be. The second piece of second trademark asset that they have is their swoosh symbol, right? So when you see that swoosh symbol or the check mark on a pair of track pants or shoes or a basketball, you automatically know this is Nike that produced that product. That also brings to mind a certain level of quality, right? Because Nike does a lot to invest in its brand recognition, and presumably the quality of their products. And then finally, they have their slogan, which, as I'm sure you know, is just do it, right? So just do it. You hear that, you see that, you automatically know in your mind, it connects that with Nike. And so these are all assets of Nike. They're distinct from that of other businesses and brands that are within that same space. And so that way, there's no likelihood of confusion. When you see a product, you know automatically the source of this product is Nike, that company. I know what to expect, and so on. And so we as business owners, we have a number of trademark assets also within our businesses. That could be a brand name, could be a product name, could be the name of a course or a collection of goods that we're selling. It could be a logo, it could be a slogan or a tagline, and so on. And so we want to make sure that we are not infringing on other businesses and other brands in using a brand name or a product name or a logo. Then we also want to make sure that there's no confusion in the market, right? I want to make sure that when I put my product out there or I'm promoting my services online, nobody is thinking, who is that? Is that company that I had worked with before? Or when they see somebody else, I want to make sure that I have exclusive rights to the use of my name or my logo or whatever it might be, so that I can enforce my rights and stop others from using anything similar to it, so that my audience or consumers do not see or interact with that other brand and think, oh, is that first brand that I had worked with, or who is that, right? So trademark law is in place to protect consumers from a likelihood of confusion as to the source of goods or services. And then finally, copyright. So a copyright is a right in an original work of art or authorship. And so, excuse me, sorry, my allergies have been out of control. Dallas and its pollen count are through the roof lately, apparently. Yes, thumbs down for sure. So copyrights, original works of art or authorship. And so examples of that would be photography, videography, music, written word. The copyright owner is always the person that created it originally, unless there's an express transfer of ownership from that creator to the new owner. So copyrights have to be transferred from one individual to the other. Now, the owner and the holder of that copyright has so many rights with respect to that work. So if I've taken, a set of photographs, I have the right to reproduce those photographs. I have the right to publish them. I have the right to create derivative works based on them. I have the right to license the use of them to others. I have the right to authorize others to license the use of them to others. And it goes on. And so we'll talk, I'm sure we'll get more into that in a little bit, but that's just sort of an overview.
And I love the distinction. What I didn't realize is it really is a protection measure on the part of a consumer to not cause confusion, specifically when we started the trademark process. So I want to take a step back because I think this is something I wish I would have been in this conversation way before even starting my business, because other than a quick Google search to see if there was anything else called, first it was the book, Powerhouse Woman, and then expanding it to Powerhouse Women, nothing popped up on Google, so I just thought I was good to go. I'm sure this is a question that comes up a lot, but how do you advise that brands and businesses take, or what steps do you advise they take before launching a product or a course or something that they're choosing a name for to make sure that they're covered legally? At least what's the basis of those initial steps that everyone should take regardless? And then, of course, where you would come in, right? Hiring a lawyer to do a full clearance search, et cetera. But yeah, where is the best place to start in choosing a name?
Yeah. So, and that's a great question. So when you're going through that, brand development process, trying to figure out the name to use for your overall brand, or maybe it's a course you're launching or a service that you're developing, or maybe it's a logo you're trying to get solid on. Before you begin to invest heavily in that name, meaning you're putting it all over your promotional materials, you got it all over your website, you're developing all your social media based on it. You're paying for ads to run using that name or using that logo. If you have physical products, you've got the packaging you're ordering, and just so much goes into, right? It's the foundation of your business. It's how people are going to recognize you. So before you begin to invest heavily in the use of that name or that logo or that trademark generally, you want to, as you mentioned, Lindsay, you want to make sure that you're working with an attorney to conduct a thorough clearance search. And during that search, what your attorney should be doing is making sure two things. One, what is the likelihood of registration, securing the federal trademark registration, and that way you're able to secure the exclusive rights to the use of that name. And two, they should be making sure that you are not infringing on another business owner in using that trademark, right? So you want to make sure that you're not going to be investing in the name and developing the brand and developing the business based on it. And then a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year later on down the line, you get hit with that cease and desist letter or with that infringement lawsuit. And then you have to go through a forced rebranding, or you have to, pay an attorney to defend you in federal court, which nobody wants to be in federal court. Like either side of that, you don't want to be on it, but you certainly don't want to be the one defending, yourself and your business. And so you want to make sure you work with an attorney to conduct that thorough clearance search. And then the second phase of that should be, if all looks good, moving forward with applying for a federal trademark registration. Now, before we get there, and this is what I advise my clients, is I don't want you to hire me to find something in 5 minutes, right? So you should definitely do a Google search and do that preliminary clearance search early on, just to make sure there isn't anything exactly the same. And I'm sure I won't say I'm sure. We should never assume. Certainly, I would say good places to start in doing that preliminary clearance search is to get on Google and search your, if it is a word or a phrase, search that word or that phrase alone, and then search it in quotations, search it in connection with different industry terms. So if you are selling, for example, jewelry, right? Just off the top of my head. Let's say I'm using the trademark XYZ, that's going to be the brand name, and I'm selling jewelry and it's a retail, store, whatever it is. Search that in connection with the trademark. Search it in quotes, search it outside of quotes. Quotes have like a special function in Google. I don't know if most people are aware of that. But yeah, so searching that can help to sort of help you to see, is there anything that's already in existence? And then that way you're not paying an attorney to find that just right off the bat. And then you're not investing further in, this brand name. Second thing, I would go to social media and search on social media, look at some different handles and different accounts on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and see what's coming up. If you are selling a physical product, you also want to go on websites like, Shopify or Etsy and see what's coming up as you search your brand name or your product name in connection with different industry terms. And then search hashtags also on social media and see what's coming up for you. If there is anything really similar, then and I know it's hard because sometimes we fall in love with these names, right? We fall in love with the brand name, we fall in love with the product name or the course name or whatever it is. But you truly are doing yourself and your business a disservice in continuing to use a name that could be confused with somebody else in your space. And then you're also possibly setting yourself up for an infringement lawsuit, which it's not a good look, right? So that's a good place to start. Definitely do a search engine or complete a search within some sort of search engine. Take a look on social media, look at the hashtags, look at the accounts. And then if you're kind of like, well, I don't think I found anything problematic, at that point you want to find and hire an attorney that can help you and conduct a clearance search for your trademark on your behalf, and then be able to share with you their legal analysis. Because the issue is not, it's important to keep in mind, like we had mentioned, like we talked about earlier, the reason trademark law is in place is to protect consumers from being confused in the market. Now, the standard that the examining attorneys at the USPTO use is not, is there anything exactly the same? The standard is there a likelihood of confusion? And so that means the marks do not necessarily have to be exactly the same. They could just be, substantially similar or somewhat similar, and based on a number of factors, which I will not bore y'all with, all the legal talk, they determine whether or not there's a likelihood of confusion.
And I actually had this exact scenario happen to a friend who is a business owner, and they had moved really far down the business pipeline with a name, only to find that they were infringing on someone else's name that was somewhat similar, not exact, but it's the confusion piece. And They had to do a whole rebrand. So like I said, I wish someone would have brought this conversation to my attention earlier on, because I think I had myself convinced that bringing in a legal team or doing a trademark clearance search, filing for a trademark was all things that were further down my business path. But what I love is that you're really showing businesses how to take that proactive approach. And so I want you to just clarify for everyone the process of filing for that trademark. So what does that look like if someone were to do it on their own versus I want you to share a little bit about the unique approach that you take to it with the flat rate approach that you've developed specifically for entrepreneurs, which I think is just genius. So will you walk us through that process of filing and what really the safeguard of hiring a professional is what I'm getting at?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So there are plenty of people that file trademark applications on their own. I see them all the time when I'm conducting clearance searches. So I'll see them pop up, and I'm going to say like 9 times out of 10, they're always abandoned applications or rejected applications because they were completed incorrectly, or they got a response from the USPTO examining attorney, and I don't know if they get spooked or if they just were never aware, they never received the notification, or if they decided, hey, I just don't want to deal with this situation, I'm afraid of this confrontation. I wish I had the answer. I'm not really sure why that always happens, but they're always abandoned, and so it's either live or dead in the database, and they're always dead. And so like I said, a lot of people do file their applications on their own. As far as the process goes with filing an application, essentially what the USPTO needs in order to process an application is they need to know what the trademark is. So what is the word mark, or what is the slogan, or what is the logo that you're applying for? They need to know what goods and services you are applying for the protection in connection with. And so typically you want it to be the description of your goods and services. You want it to be broad enough to where you have the broadest possible protections, but you want it to be specific enough to where it's clear what it is you're providing in connection with, this logo or this slogan or whatever it is. And they also need to know the category of the goods and services. So they have a set number of, I think it's like 41 categories. So you need to be able to identify which category you're applying in connection with, and then provide the goods and services description also. And then they need a specimen which shows, how you're using it. So if you're, selling a product and you've got, your logo on the product, they want to see a photo of that product, with your name or with your logo or whatever the trademark is you're applying for. If you're a service-based business where we don't necessarily have these physical products that we're selling, they want to see how are you promoting your services in connection with this trademark. And so, yeah, those are, and I think I hit on all of the pieces that they request, at least the main things that they request in order to process your trademark application. So as you can see, there are a number of things that they need, and that just means there are a number of opportunities to screw it up, especially for somebody that isn't familiar with the process. And then I want to say, even more importantly, when you go it alone, very rarely are you conducting a thorough clearance search. So that preliminary clearance search that I described to you, where you're going on Google or whatever search engine you prefer, going on social media and you're taking a look, that is not sufficient as a thorough clearance search, right? Because there's no legal analysis behind it. And so when you go ahead and you file your trademark application with the USPTO, the process after that, 3 to 4 months, nothing really happens. Your application is just pending, and there hasn't even been an examining attorney assigned at that point. After about 4 months, the examining attorney is assigned, and then they begin their examination period. That can take 3 months for them to begin to even do that, right? Because there are so many brands popping up every day, and just thousands and thousands of trademark applications that are pending and that are being examined. And so, as you can imagine, they, have to take their time, I suppose. We want things done right away, but they don't work that way. So so right there, that could be 6, 7 months, 8 months even, and nothing has even happened. And so presumably during that 6, 7, 8 month period, you're building your business and developing your brand based on that name. And then you could get hit ultimately with no. You're being rejected. You're not going to be granted the right to the use, or the exclusivity of this name or this trademark or this logo. And that can really throw a wrench into things, right? If you've already spent months and months, over half a year, investing in the development of your business based on this brand name or this logo, or trademarks overall, you're kind of faced with a difficult situation that could have been avoided had you done your due diligence up front and worked with a legal professional that could help you in providing you with the advice necessary to determine whether or not this is going to be a strong intellectual property asset for you to pursue and to build your business based on. So like I said, there are a lot of people that, unfortunately, there are some people in the world that they simply do not value the contribution of a professional, legal or not, right? So within the legal field, yes, but also outside, where they just want to DIY everything, right? So they've just got to learn that their own way. It's a lesson learned. A lot of the time, it's a really hard lesson learned. But hey, I wish them the best. It's really difficult to. I imagine it's really difficult to be that person. But when you do work with a professional, specifically within the legal space and within trademark protection, specifically, you one, you are represented throughout that entire examination process. As your attorney of record, and this is how I represent my clients, is when we submit I, of course, draft the application myself. We make sure that it's done correctly, and we've seen, so many of these, a countless number of these. And so I know exactly how they need to be completed as an attorney and as a legal professional. And so I draft our application, collect all the information that we need and that is required, submit it to the USPTO, and I name myself as the attorney of record, which is what your attorney should be doing. And then as your attorney of record, that means I represent you throughout that examination period, and any correspondence is going to be sent my way. And then that way I'm able to relay that to you as my client. Kind of to compare a different kind of service, and I know we've talked about this before, is there are a lot of document preparation companies out there like LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer, and just to name a few. And I've never worked with any of those companies personally. I know that they had some class action lawsuits filed against them for unauthorized practice of law in a few states. But I have had a lot of clients that come to me and ask me to clean up a mess that LegalZoom and other document preparation companies had created for them within their businesses, which it really makes my blood boil, honestly, because I know that it's, a lot of the time you're strapped for cash within your business, and they're not cheap. They can be cheaper than working with a lawyer, but ultimately you have to end up hiring a lawyer to clean up the mess, and it just becomes even more expensive. And so it's like, do it right the first time around. Your legal foundation for your business is not where you want to cut corners. These online companies that, say, hey, we'll help file your entity formation, or we'll help file your trademark. There's no legal analysis behind that. You're not hiring an attorney. You're not a client of theirs. They are simply providing you with a form in one place where you can just enter in all the words or the information or whatever it is. And then they have some kind of system that transfers that into an application, and they just push it through. There's nobody, going through the application, making sure everything is correct. And I would guess a lot of those applications that look like they were filed by individuals were filed by companies like that. Because, I see a lot of the same mistakes being made. So, I'm thinking that now. I hadn't really thought about that before, but I think that's probably the case, because I know when you do go through a company like that, you are the individual. There is no attorney of record. There's nobody responsible for it. That's just you, and you're kind of on your own. So, that's really that process that you can expect, though. And then if you choose to go it alone, more power to you. But certainly when you work with a professional and somebody that has seen this process, countless times, there's value there that you can't, and you don't really want to have to, develop on your own, right? You don't want to have to learn through many mistakes, like how to secure your trademark assets, when you could just do it right the first time. And again, this isn't where you want to be cutting corners.
And I think you absolutely are right that the DIY mentality is often coming from a place thinking that we're saving ourselves money, when really we may be putting ourselves in a position to have to spend way more down the road if a problem comes up, or heaven forbid that something goes wrong or someone approaches you with a cease and desist. So I know that I have learned so much from you, and we are going to continue this conversation in our private membership community. But for the podcast listeners, tell everyone where they can find and connect with you if they want to learn more, or just follow along and learn from all of the value that you put on social media on a daily basis.
Yes, thank you. So you can find me on Instagram, like Lindsay mentioned. I'm Startup Lawyer Lady on there. And then if you want to check out my website, it's yshfirm.com. That's yshfirm.com. And I have a blog on there that I share information on about trademark and brand protection. And there's also a free ebook that you can download via my website. So I look forward to connecting with y'all.